Hey guys, the sixth book in the series that I'm going to review of the Vampire Chronicles is The Vampire Armand. This is the return of Anne Rice after she said she was done with the vampires, originally with Memnoch the Devil. And so this is a return to the series again, and it tells the story, as you can guess, of the story of Armand and his backstory, because Lestat's basically taken out. For the next few books, Lestat's barely mentioned in the series. So if you're into Lestat and you're reading it for Lestat, these are not the best series or the best books to get into. But if you're interested in this character, it's a good book to read. That's my short review, but the long review is this. After Memnoch the Devil, or at the end of Memnoch the Devil, when Lestat came back from hell and talked to the vampires about the devil and his experiences, Armand had a awakening of faith again. And because he once again believed in God, he went out to the sun and tried to kill himself. And that was a big deal because in his human days, he was working in a monastery when he was a child until he was kidnapped and became a sex slave in a brothel. So here comes the Sleeping Beauty-ish kind of influences coming into the series. Has nothing to do with the Sleeping Beauty trilogy as far as I could have told or seen, but just that little erotica coming in. And this is probably the most erotic book out of the whole of Vampire Chronicles in my opinion, especially gay erotica, and you see why, because Marius finds him in the brothel and takes him back to his mansion villa where Marius has these boys as students. They're not slaves, they're students. And so he trains Armand, his favorite student, in the proper ways of classiness and trains him up right. But not in a bad way, but he eventually becomes romantically involved with Armand. Marius does, and because he's his favorite pupil and loves him the most. And it gets pretty graphic into like I said, the gay erotica. So if it's not your thing, this is the book that may not be your favorite in the series, but it is overall pretty interesting because then it has a ton of action. Like eventually Santino comes and tries to attack Marius's villa while he's gone and attacks the boys and sets the whole place on fire. And Armand is dishomed after that event where it's completely destroyed, and Armand is poisoned, and to save his life, Marius makes him a vampire, and that's how Armand becomes a vampire. Not a huge spoiler, but if you were just curious at least about that much, that's how Armand became a vampire. And then it goes into how, after he was dishomed, how he eventually found the little tribe of vampires that Louis met on Interview of the Vampire, and how Armand became the leader eventually of those vampires, and they found the Theater of the Vampires. So yeah, that's the review is that it's a good book, but it has a lot of erotica in it, detailed, very much so, to very detailed sex scenes between Marius and Armand. So if that, like I said, that's not your thing, then this is probably not going to be your favorite in the series, but a lot of people like this book. And if you can get past that, if that's not like he was saying, that that's not your thing, because when I was reading this, that was the hardest part to get through for me, because just for certain reasons, I guess. But besides that, overall the book was okay. With that said, I give this one a 3 out of 5. This one, and then the side story I'm going to review of Pandora. To me, these were the lowest parts of the series when she was coming back. Not much Lestat, like I said, in it, but it gives backstory for these characters, and it answers questions about who Armand is, which fleshes out his character really well. And so, with all that said, if you love Armand, here you go. Here's a story. It's worth a read. and it's one of those that you'll have to decide if you like it or not. If you're not into erotica, there's another thing too. If you're not into that, it's not a whole sex book, but there's just so much in it here when it comes to the relationship between Armand and Marius. So that kind of turned me off. Maybe it's just because when you read a vampire book, I don't know, maybe just through the other books in the series, it just wasn't expecting this much in it. Maybe that was my problem. But that is The Vampire Armand. A must read if you're continuing through the series to get the backstory of this character. But if you don't like certain things, it may be a hard read. Definitely not the worst in the series when you include the expanding universe. But there you go. There's The Vampire Armand. And I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.